Hey, some of you guys that follow the channel have heard me talk about this lure before, but there's a lot of people that probably haven't. And here's the bait that I'm talking about, guys. The old Whopper Stopper Hellbender lure. This thing was a staple back in the 60s and early 70s. So let me preface this and tell you a little story behind this, and then we'll get into it. And like I said, if you guys have heard me talk about the Hellbender before, you might pick up a few tips on it here. But anyway, my earliest memories of bass fishing were with my dad and a good friend of his, and we would go down, not a lot, but we'd go down to Table Rock and Grand Lake, close to where I grew up in Joplin. Probably, I don't know, once every other month when I was a kid, we'd go down there. And you got to realize back then, this was the late 60s and early 70s when bass fishing, it was just getting started out in this modern version. So my dad, we had a 16-foot V-bottom Starcraft aluminum boat with a 28 horsepower Evinrude motor, and it had a little 12-volt Silver Troll trolling motor on the back of the boat. No depth finders whatsoever, so they didn't have any maps or depth finders. My dad and his friend, all they had this little trolling motor, so they just had to go out and fish whatever they did. And I remember they rigged these Hellbenders up, guys, they had a spinning rod, like a white fiberglass spinning rod with a Mitchell 300 spinning reel with blue monofilament line. And they put this whopper plopper down in there. And we'd usually go during the early spring, like in March and early April, that type of stuff. And guys, now I was a kid at the time, you got to remember, but every single trip that I can remember going down there with my dad and his friend, they caught big ones. I mean, I'm talking like 8 and 9 pounders, like every single trip on this dang Hellbender. I remember, it's one thing, we were down at Grand Lake and it was March. And they were up in the Elk River arm of Grand Lake, if you guys have been there. And they started throwing these Hellbenders on these bluffy, steep banks up there in the Elk River. And they caught 2 9-pound bass that day. Of course, they brought them home and filleted them out. This was 1969, nobody threw them back. But I saw 2 giants caught on the Hellbender, and the same with Table Rock. They caught 9-pounders at Table Rock on the thing. So there's something about this lure, the Whopper Stopper Hellbender, that big bass love this thing. And I don't know why I haven't fished it more. I'm trying to get some now because they're hard to find. You can get them at some tackle stores, but I'm trying to get on eBay and order some of them. But I'm going to start fishing these things again. I think the only reason that I haven't fished them more is they're rudimentary. They got the metal lips on them, but there's something about the profile and the action and the wobble of this bait here that it attracts big ones. And it sort of wobbles a little bit like a wiggle wart in the water. It's got a real wide wobble, a little